coordinate one of these days to where the same app.
Well, all right. Welcome back, everyone, to Three Guys, One Music. We're on 10 today. All right. What's good? What's up, Mike and Grant? What's going on?
Hello, everyone. How are you, Jamie?
Oh, I'm always good.
Pumped.
Except for last week when I was sick.
Yeah, I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, I am feeling much better. Yeah, the weather's been nice. It's invigorated me. Had a nice little walk yesterday for a company event, which was really good for the blood flow to the brain, I think.
You can walk around the island.
No, I didn't actually. This was in town. I thought I won't go into details, but yeah, it was nice to get out and walk for a little bit. The weather was very nice, so it was good for me. So, you guys doing okay?
Yep. It's monsoon season here in North Carolina.
I remember those days. I remember.
North Carolina is like Florida, where it's sunny. Oh, it's nice. Oh, it's storming. Oh, it's not so nice. Oh, it's sunny again. Oh, it's it's storming.
It's actually been very iffy here in New England as well. We've had some beautiful days, and then it's going to get cool again this weekend. More rain. So it's really been all over the place, but the nice days have been super nice. So that's great. But today is our album focus episode. We are going to talk about a record that probably for me, more important than the other two guys. I think we'd all agree on that.
Agree on that.
Kiss Alive from 1975, released September 10th, 1975, I believe. A very important record for many, many people, including this guy. I've listened to this record many, many times, as we all have, but I've probably listened to it on a semi-regular basis, which the other two do not. Just my taste. I love guitars. I love Kiss's catalog, actually. People can say what they want about the talent within the band and the gimmick of the makeup and all that stuff. I always just took it as a package deal. But I listen to the songs. That means something to me. I think that they have stood the test of time. Not everything.
Most of them. I was going to say a lot.
Most of them. Yeah, some of them are not that great.
I have something to say about that, about this album too. So
we'll get into some minutia, and but what we'll do is we'll basically give a short history of the band. We're just going to go ahead and get right into it. Kiss Alive was the fourth release for the guys. Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, Peter Criss, Ace Frehley. Ace is really the reason I play guitar. I try to defend him when he was a kid, when he was in his 20s, the first 4 years of the band, probably. He was really a fine guitar player that was very melodic, had his own style, I think.
So recognizable.
And it was really unique for him. He really had his own little thing. He had these little flashy licks, but the thing that I loved about him the most, and there are key tracks, how melodic he was at one point, and that went away. I don't know what happened. I don't know. It's just odd. It's always been peculiar to me that he just reinvented himself, in my opinion, not for the better.
Gene said, "You're playing too much, boy."
I don't know. It's interesting, but he did end up becoming a much more prolific songwriter toward the latter days of his early involvement with the band, late 70s, early 80s. He was writing much, much more, which is great.
Yeah.
He did write some key tracks like Parasite, Cold Gin, the first two records. But anyway, Kiss started, I think the debut record came out February of 74, rather. Casablanca Records. Neil Bogart signed them. They were the very first act on Records, which was going to be called Emerald City Records. I don't know if you two knew that.
Oh, yeah.
He changed it the last second to Casablanca. And that's just iconic, with Bogart,
I bet Disney said, no, you can't use Emerald City.
I have never read that, but that could be. But Casablanca is iconic. I mean, it's just, they ended up, of course, becoming the disco label of the mid to late 70s.
I was going to say the two names I think of when I hear Casablanca Records is Kiss and Donna
Donna
Summer.
Summer. Yeah, and Village People.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
Village
yeah.
People sold a boatload of records. Yeah, back then. But yeah, so they had the first couple of releases and they were just incessantly touring. They were just trying to do their thing and trying to get it out there. And it's funny to me that if you didn't grow up with it, the makeup just seems like a complete gimmick and just ridiculous, and maybe the outfits too. But if you grew up with it, I just accepted it as the full package.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It was just that. I never looked at it as being weird as I could look at a band like Sensational Harvey Band, Alex Harvey Band, and the guitar player, is it Zal Clemenson maybe? He wore makeup and it just looked weird. But then Kiss had their thing, which it just made sense to me.
Mhm.
And I don't know why that is, but it just made sense. And they had distinct characters, and it was really about entertainment
Yeah.
and escape. And it just sucked us all in when you were a kid at that age.
Well,
They were larger than life.
several
really were.
bands still take on that, whether it be
Yeah.
masks or makeup or costumes.
Yeah.
I mean, Slipknot started, and they had all the weird masks, and that really, the mystery of that really helped their story. And Ghost, bands
Right.
like that,
When people don't know the answer to something, they want to
Mhm.
know what's behind the mask.
Yeah.
And Kiss understood that. They are brilliant marketing people.
Yeah, marketeers.
Marketeers, whatever you
Yeah.
want to say about their music talent. I personally think Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons, although I have many issues with both of them, it doesn't matter. Those guys have proven after 50 years that they've
Oh, yeah,
done
for
their
sure.
thing. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what I think, but Gene is a fine bass player that has his own sounds. His fingers have a sound. A lot of people don't realize that he was the rhythm guitar player on a ton of Kiss tracks. When Paul and Ace didn't even play rhythm, it's a certain sound that Gene has
Mhm.
with his fingers. That's awesome to me. I love it. And Paul has his own thing. So they had 3 records. They had Kiss, the debut record, Hotter Than Hell, which was released in October of 74. And then Dressed to Kill was released in March of 75. And they were barely scraping by. They were just touring nonstop. And Neil Bogart took them off the road. I think before Dressed to Kill came out and said, we need a new record. So they needed an anthem. He said, we got to have something anthemic. So they came up with Rock and Roll All Night. And that was, I would say, still one of the most anthemic rock and roll classics. Everybody knows that song.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, you hear it all the time. It's all like, it's like Crazy Train at a baseball game, Rock and Roll All Night. You hear it everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
So they were on the road. They knew that they had come to this conclusion that the records weren't selling. So I don't know who proposed the idea of a live record, maybe Neil Bogart, but so they decided to record a show. We'll get into this in just a second. So as many people might know, there was a certain segment of the population in the country where they were really more popular than anywhere else, and that was the Midwest, the Rust Belt. They had more rabid fans there than anywhere in the country, including New York, where they're from. But they really did go, they elevated everything very quickly. I mean, when you think about how fast everything was from February 74 to September 75, in a year and a half, when the 4th record came out, just the fact that 4 records within a year is amazing. I mean, that's the way it was back then. Rush did the same thing pretty much. Who opened up for a ton of shows on those first 2 years of Kiss. They were about the second band that you could depend on seeing at a Kiss show.
Yeah.
And they had a great relationship back then, which always has made me happy that they liked each other genuinely.
Yeah. Well, their music was more compatible. The first Rush obviously was more compatible with Kiss than
Yeah, but I've always heard Geddy
later
and Alan
Rush. Yeah.
say and Neil say some kind words
Oh
about
yeah.
the guys in
Mhm.
Kiss. They
Yeah.
treated them very well.
Yeah.
They liked each other as human beings, which I
Yeah.
just think is awesome because Rush, I think most people would say they're some of the nicest people ever in rock.
Mhm.
And I don't think they would have ever been able to maintain if Kiss didn't treat them well. We would have known it.
Yeah.
But they had a great relationship, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And they looked at Rush. I mean, they looked at Kiss and how hard they worked. And that's in the media. You can see that on YouTube or, whatever. They had a lot of respect for how hard Kiss worked. And Kiss, God, the fact that Gene Simmons blew fire, spat fake blood.
Yeah.
Uh,
Was it fake?
it was fake. Those guys were putting in the work to try to have Ace has a smoking guitar. It was really epic. Nothing else was like this back then. They were doing everything they could to try to entertain people, and they did.
Mhm.
But they were able to write the songs that were a great soundtrack
Mhm.
to that concert, which
Mhm.
I just think is amazing because these songs hold up. Many of them hold up very well. So
Yeah, but at the time, making a live album, which a live album wasn't really respected at the time. That was a
absolutely,
throwaway thing. And a live
Yeah.
album being kind of a greatest hits, having
Yeah.
3 albums with not one
Hit. Yeah.
charting, not
Right.
one hit single. I
Yeah.
mean, that was a big move.
it was ballsy.
Well, they
And Casablanca was in the same spot. It's like Now or Never. They would have, if
They
that
were
record
yeah,
didn't do well, they would have failed.
that
I
is
remember,
absolutely right.
I remember reading somewhere because you're right, Casablanca was in so much debt, but they were talking about a live record instead of another studio record because I can't remember if it was Gene or Paul or maybe both were like nobody the studio records aren't exciting.
Right.
We sound so much better live in
Yeah.
in the immediate sense and the
Right.
powerful sense. We need to get that on tape because the
Right.
studio records are so pristinely done basically that
Right.
people go to a show and go, Kiss, I never knew they sounded this good because they don't sound like
Right.
that on the record because the records were more tame, and I think that's one of the reasons that also I remember reading that they wanted to capture that energy.
Yeah.
And
That's the word,
yeah,
capture.
and show people it's not just a studio. This is what we're really like,
Right. And we'll get into the behind the scenes a little bit of actual what Alive actually is.
Yeah.
There's some trickery, of course. Everybody knows this by now. But they were wise enough to know what they had to do to present
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
what you might experience at a Kiss show. And they did do that, I think. So as you said, Mike, before Alive came out, there had been many live records, but they were not respected. It meant really nothing. I can't think of a really important live record. Now, there are lots of bands that had live records, but I don't know that they were really very well done.
It was looked as filler, like, instead of
Well,
we don't have any new songs, so let's put out a live album.
I don't know that it was looked that way, but it certainly was.
Yeah.
Like CSNY, Four-Way Street. I love that live record, but it is really haggard. But I love the fact that it is. It's very just barely holding on. There's nothing really tight about it. Three Dog Night. I've seen that live record out. It was out when we were kids. That was recorded at the Forum. I've never heard it. I don't know how well it did, but I really doubt that it was. And back then you couldn't even be sure that a live record was live.
Yep.
As we'll talk about in a second.
You can't be sure now.
Yeah, you can't be sure now. So when Alive came out, it really was, I would safely say, the biggest, most important live record, probably besides Frampton Comes Alive.
Yeah, it was a couple years later. A year later, yeah.
I would say this is
years later, yeah.
This is one of the most important live records of all time, if not the most important, because it changed the entire industry.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't even know if Frampton Comes Alive would have come out if this hadn't have been such a huge success.
Well, the next live record that came out would have was also recorded at Cobo Hall was Live Bullet by Bob Seger.
Mhm.
That was a very big success.
Yep.
Mhm.
I don't know that it would have been as successful as Kiss if Kiss Alive didn't come out before it. That I really am doubtful of, but I think it came out in April of '76, and it was a really. There's some great live performances. We all know "Turn the Page,"
Yeah.
"Beautiful Loser." There's some great live tracks that are just iconic for me from that record. But that's also recorded at Cobo Hall, and then you had "Frampton Comes Alive." It came out also, I think, summer '76, spring '76. The most successful live record of all time. I still think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that 8 million copies, something like that. Great record. I love that record. But Alive was so important for the industry. It really showed all these. There was just a tremendous amount of live records that every live band, with the exception of maybe Foreigner, they never put out a live record, which is odd. But just about Van Halen never put out a live record until the Sammy days.
Yeah.
It was truly expected. There's going to be a live record at some point coming from bands. Rush did All the World's a Stage, late '76.
Yeah.
At Budokan by Cheap Trick. Fantastic record.
That changed
Iconic.
the trajectory of their career.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because they were not hugely popular in the U.S.,
Yeah,
but they were mega stars basically in Japan. They said, if we're going to do live, let's record Japan where they care about us. And then people over here were like, kind of the same thing with Kiss. Hey, these guys sound great. Look at this energy. Look at this passion.
That's just it. They were able to capture the energy of the band, but what didn't come across in the studio albums.
Okay, so the first show recorded for Alive is Cobo Hall, May 16th, 1975. So that's 50 years ago.
Jeez, man.
Jamie, I don't want to interrupt, but we usually start out with the album art, and I didn't have it, so I spent the last 2 days painting this.
All right,
show it up closer.
This is the actual album art for Kiss Alive.
This the art they chose not to use.
I prefer that actually.
Yeah,
I love that.
I'll sign that and send it to you.
Yeah, I want you to take a really good picture of that and send it to me. I'm serious. I love it.
That you said that was shot at the concert hall before
Michigan Palace, a day or two before the Cobo Hall taping. It was filmed or shot at Michigan Palace, and that's
when I was
Costello was the photographer.
Yeah, when I was a little kid, my dad worked at a department store. We used to go see him, maybe go to pick him up or meet him for lunch or whatever we were doing. And when I was waiting, I would always go to the record section. And not that I, would buy any albums, but 70s album art I was fascinated by as a kid.
Yeah.
And I would flip through these, and you talk about an iconic look and image that was cultivated by Kiss. I remember every album cover, seeing it at that department store. It stood out. And I remember this album cover, and it's obviously a stage picture, but as a little kid, I was really excited by just the image of the explosions and the smoke and the lights on stage,
right?
And what a rock concert would be like. So even the album cover, not knowing what the band is like, it's really enticing, really exciting.
Yeah, and again, they had an art director. Oh geez, his name just went out of my brain. Dennis Wallach, I think. He did From Alive until I think Crazy Nights in '87. He did 12 years of album covers for them. Pretty much, yeah. I think it's Dennis Wallach is his name. But
that sounds familiar. I remember seeing that name.
Yeah. He was part of Mark's management, Howard Marks, and oh geez, the other gentleman's name I can't think of, Carl something. But those who were the business managers, and then Bill Aucoin was the manager. But they had guys that were looking after the money, and also Dennis Wallach was part of the art director. He was the main art director who was in control of the record
Yeah.
covers. So anyway, they very wisely, just like you said, Mike, they wanted to make you think, hey, this is something you want to hear. You need to listen to this. But when they recorded the show, Eddie Kramer did engineer and produce this record. That
Right.
has to be said. Really important figure for them. Did some great records other than a
For
lot.
rock and roll, yeah.
Yeah, and for love. Yeah, Zeppelin, Hendrix, really important guy. And it was clear after they recorded Kobo, and they did film this on actual film. There is a film of this concert, but it must be not that great because it's never surfaced. You can see just bits of it here and there, but there's never any audio with it. So it makes
You know why though?
that makes me think that that just wasn't really very good.
Yeah.
People they don't want it out there because they'll say, well, this is Kobo. Why doesn't it sound like the record? It's really not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm guessing. Even though we all know that it's not the same, but still, I just don't think they want to throw it in our faces. But,
What's interesting to me is March of that year, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe it's March. They were on Midnight Special.
April
of the same year.
Right.
And that April is not that far from where they started, started recording the tours or the shows.
Yeah. Next
But the
month,
Midnight
yeah.
Special, I love those performances. It's very
Yeah.
magic for me, and they perform well. They sound good.
I thought that was a really good performance. Yeah. They recorded Goose, Black Diamond, and She.
Right.
And they did actually record Come On and Love Me, but that has never surfaced.
Yeah.
I don't know if
But,
it's lost the time.
It's interesting that the concerts would be so difficult to capture.
Well, they were moving around and they were trying to entertain people.
Yeah.
They weren't, I don't know. I mean,
They're very kinetic band.
I've just read many, many times, like we're running around, we're trying to entertain. There's going to be notes dropped. That totally makes sense.
Mhm.
You're not a musician's band. You're an entertaining band. So I get it.
Knock your guitar a little out of tune. I mean, you
Right.
gotta keep playing,
Well, just the fact that you have Gibson guitars. I have a Gibson SG that will not stay in tune like my other guitars, for whatever reason. I mean, it's great. I love it. But it's not, if I was jumping around, I can't imagine how easy it would be to go out of tune. So I get it. The fact that Ace has always maintained his guitars always sound like they were in tune, I find extraordinary, considering how much those guys are running around. So, but anyway, Eddie Kramer realized, oh, this isn't really very good, or somebody did.
Yeah.
So they decided they had to record additional concerts. So they ended up recording in Cleveland, Ohio. They recorded in Davenport, Iowa, and Wildwood, New Jersey. And every one of those dates has significant amount of music that was included in the actual live record. And I don't know that there's ever been a breakdown, but actually in Let Me Go Rock and Roll, you can hear Gene say, "Come on, Quad City," which Davenport, Iowa is a quad city. So that, that was recorded in Davenport. But it's for the people who really, I might not be able to measure up to my minutia moniker on this, but there's plenty of people who can tell you what track is the bulk of that probably. And I would love to know that information. Actually, I don't know, but
I'm going to mess with that, but I didn't have time to mess with that.
Yeah. I mean, we could,
because I was curious, it could have been 2 songs recorded at Cabo Hall and then the rest, most of it from New Jersey. Who knows,
I want to say Firehouse is from Wildwood, New Jersey. I think 100,000 Years is from Davenport, Iowa. I think Hotter Than Hell is from Cleveland. I'm pretty sure of those 3 tracks. I'm not really sure about the rest.
Yeah.
But but they recorded these tracks, but then they still realized this is still not going to work. So they had to go into Electric Lady Studios. And they had to replace. Now, here's credit to Peter Criss, who gets so much flack.
They didn't have to touch the drums.
That's by all accounts. They had to do very little to correct anything. The drums, as they were recorded, are what you hear on the record. So that's great.
Yeah.
And I think Ace probably might have had to touch up a thing here or two, but I think his solos probably largely are what you hear, what was recorded in concert. Gene said that there's a flub on "Come On and Love Me," which we'll go into the track listing here in a bit. Um, he said it's out. It's the wrong note. He said we just left it. Who knows? You know, Paul has never been a great guitar player, but he has a sound.
Mhm.
But it sounds great on the record. And I love the fact that you can hear the difference between Paul and Ace on some of the tracks.
Yeah.
I can tell you which tracks Paul was using this Flying V, and I can tell you which tracks he was using this Firebird. They just sound different. I know that just from that disparity that I know which guitar he's using, which I love. You know, he could be using anything, but I know that he only was using 2 guitars back then for the most part.
Yeah.
So Ace had his 72 Tobacco Sunburst Deluxe. That was his guitar. But we probably hear that on every track. Who knows exactly? But so they do some tweaking in the studio, which came out many, many years later that they copped to it. Yeah, we had to correct a lot of things. Now, the other thing is that this record, as we discussed earlier, really presents a concert experience. It makes you feel like you're watching a band, you're in the audience.
And that's what you want. That's what
That's
you
what
want.
you want.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
is the most important thing. This
Mhm.
record did make people feel like, wow, man, it achieved its goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Eddie Kramer realized that he had to boost the audience sound. So they did. They put, as I understand it, a loop of audience noise, and they just really accentuated that, and it worked.
Well, you have to. I think every live album, regardless of if they admit that or not, because when you're recording, you don't want crowd noise. You want your microphones to you want the
Right.
board sound. You want to capture the instruments and the voices. And the crowd noise is the antithesis of that, because you're
Right.
going to have a terrible time trying to mix those high frequencies out when it's best just not to record them at all if we can help it. So I think every live album has some boosted crowd in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things Gene Simmons said was he'd listen to other live albums and you couldn't tell it was live until the end because there's no audience. When the audience is part of the energy that they put out there. So they wanted more audience. And that's why, sometimes the audience reaction wasn't recorded as well.
Yeah.
And that's why they overdubbed even the applause.
Right.
For some
I
of
think
the
it's
songs.
legitimate. I
Yeah.
think it's brilliant.
I don't have a problem with it.
He realized what they needed to present to people.
Yeah.
And it worked. So I just think it's brilliant. I have absolutely no issue with it because I know these guys actually played these notes, and we could talk about the current controversy with miming, and there's a gentleman over in Italy, I guess, who's going through a tough time. I don't think this is the same thing, but in a way it is. You're presenting something that's not maybe truly accurate.
Yeah, but it's your own music. It's your own music. Yeah.
And I still think this is legitimate because they set out to do this, and it is their music. And
like you said, they did play the songs. One thing I chuckle at researching this, I looked at a few videos. One thing that makes me laugh is Paul Stanley. He continued to say several times that he wanted the listener to have the authentic experience.
Right.
I'm like, maybe that's not the right word because the authentic is underneath
experience.
All this overdubbing. But the important thing he said was that he wanted the listener to have the experience.
Right.
And if they had to build that on top of the recorded live experience or live recording, then they succeeded. There's nothing wrong with that as far as I see. Although, it would have been better if they'd admitted it sooner.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they were really trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. They were just trying to make a product. That seems to be what KISS was all about. They have an image and a product that they wanted to sell, and they wanted it to be the best for the people who enjoyed it. And, being able to capture and create that experience on vinyl was what that live album was all about.
Well, Eddie Kramer said, would you rather hear authenticity and an entire song with a guitar out of tune, or would you rather hear the song the way it's supposed to sound, as if you're at a concert having a good time and everything is sounding like it's supposed to sound. You want that concert experience. You don't want you want to suffer through 3 songs of an out of tune guitar because you want authentic. No, that's not what you want. You wouldn't listen to it. You wouldn't buy it. You know,
nobody. Well, you wouldn't listen to it twice.
Yeah,
Most likely.
That's
The
just
other
it.
thing is, Eddie.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say Eddie also had the brilliance to edit this stuff where it's indiscernible what is live and what's not.
Yeah.
So that is remarkable. They were trying to present something that maybe they needed to correct a lot of things. Who knows to what extent? I would say it was probably extensive, but who knows? But he did a remarkable job of putting that in to a live performance. He said nobody could tell. I don't think you could. There's nothing.
No, there's
obvious.
You can't hear any punch-ins. You can't hear anything. And I've really listened several times throughout the years. Like, okay, I'm going to see if I can hear, put headphones on, turn it up, turn it down, just trying to see if you can hear, because of different volumes, you might hear different things, and you can't. It's seamless. It's done so well.
It is done well. But I will say that even though I am not a fan of, this is my least favorite Ace guitar sound that he ever had, which is weird. I much prefer his sound before this and after. I never loved his sound on this, but I do love this performance and I love what it represents. So I just will say that. But
you're so tone picky.
I am a tone nut. Yeah. So when this record took off fairly quickly, these guys were still building on their career. It came out September 10th, 75, as I discussed earlier. And I want to say by November, they were really starting to sell out everywhere. It was really catching on. People were coming to the shows. This record made a big impact on their trajectory. There is just no question.
Can you imagine a modern record company letting a band go 3 albums deep with no traction at all and still saying, well, we'll let you put out another album?
Kiss were the first band on Casablanca, and I think Neil, he was just a risk taker. He was not like your average guy.
Well,
he would throw everything at it and say, well, let's just see if this works.
Back in the day, record companies didn't expect a first album to do anything. It wasn't like you're starting at 1. It was like, this is 0. And then the second album will be 1. And then, okay, well, you might get a little notice. So we got to build on that. And the third album's actually the second album, according to them. And so, there's bands that had 5 albums or more before they really, really hit. And, I think sometime in the 80s, I think, if you didn't have something from the jump, or at least the second album, record companies were like, bye, I mean,
things changed,
and they didn't want to put any kind of effort behind,
developing an artist.
Yeah, exactly.
They wanted the package already to present. One thing I think you really have to appreciate when they did this live album, this was a Hail Mary. This was supposed to be an inexpensive product to put out, and they still had to go into the studio and do all the changes. You think about, like you said, putting out 4 albums, even though one's a live album, putting out 4 albums in 2 years, and the most recent album, Dress to Kill, was recorded in 10 days. So rushed like they were, you can imagine the pressure on the live album. And I would like to see the budget for the live album, because if they're pressed to do an album, their third album, which you should have some leeway on your third album, you should be doing well enough that you have time to sort things out. But 10 days to record Dress to Kill, and then they were forced to do the live album. But it was the right thing to do, of course, because of the results.
Well, I want to say that they had received $0 in royalties. They had probably sold between all 3 records, maybe $250,000 records.
Oh, they probably still owed the record company for recoupment. I mean, there's no way they made any money.
Well, shortly after, I think on the 15th of 1975, 5 days after Alive came out, I have read this. I'm assuming it's true that Bill Aucoin told Neil Bogart we're leaving the label. So Neil Bogart wrote them a big check to
Yeah,
get
$2
them.
million
Yeah.
check. Yeah.
I saw that.
So, you know, I assume that's accurate. That doesn't sound right to me. $2
Well, if
million.
their contract was up, but
Well, but $2 million? You
yeah,
haven't
well, that's
sold
what I
enough
read. Yeah.
records. That's what it says, but I don't know how
Well,
accurate.
I mean,
Yeah.
Neil was like, I got to do my Hail Mary to keep this band because I can make more money in the future. I can make that money back, you know?
I don't think it's accurate, but I'll tell you why. I
Yeah.
think that I read many, many years ago in a biography by C.K. Lent where he said they got a $2 million check in 76 after Alive had come out and maybe right after Destroyer had come out. That's when they had already sold like 4 million copies and they had enough money to get that
Yeah.
$2 million check. I don't think that's accurate. I think that is on Wikipedia. I don't believe that's accurate that they wrote him a 2 million. He wrote them a $2 million check to stick. That just doesn't financially make any sense to me, but
Yeah.
it could be. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I know it says that he did, but I don't believe it, but
Yeah.
Yeah. Neil, if you're listening, put a comment in the.
I don't
He's
think he's
still
gonna
alive
answer. I don't think
No.
from beyond.
Um,
Yes, it's true. $2 million. Shame
so
on you, Jamie.
so a lot of people don't know this, or maybe most people do know it, that they during the I want to
Why do
say the
ghosts always
week.
talk like that?
All of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jamie. I was like, why do ghosts always talk like that? You're going to
scary.
die.
It's scary. The week prior to Alive coming out, they were actually in the studio with Bob Ezrin. The first week of 75, they were
Working on
recording.
Destroyer.
They were recording on the very first tracks for Destroyer. Yeah, that's that. I never knew that for a long time. So
I didn't either.
these
I was-
guys were hustling,
I
man.
was
They were just
8
like
years old
working,
when I found
working,
out.
working. I mean, it's just remarkable how
Yeah.
hard these guys worked. Really, they were determined to be successful. So, God, you can't really knock it.
You can't fault
Yeah.
Gene or any of them, but you know how Gene's always the pitch man and the marketing man and this man. You can't fault that because he wanted it. You know,
He did want it. Yeah,
he
absolutely.
did it. You know,
Those guys were driven for sure. So, like I said, in late 75, they were starting to sell out everywhere. This record was really coming into its own, and they knew that they had hit the jackpot. They really knew that they had struck gold. So the record, I think, went gold within the first couple of months,
they
maybe.
struck platinum.
Well, it probably did reach platinum, but back then the records weren't.
Yeah, it was the gold.
They weren't certified as platinum.
Yep.
But I want to say that it's sold maybe 4 or 5 million copies, maybe more at this point. But I think it was 4 million copies 30 years ago.
That's
So
4 times platinum.
surely it's but that's
I know.
that's just fantastic that you had something for a band that had been around for less than 2 years, and they really knew that they had achieved their goal, and the fact that they had these new costumes every single tour, that was really fascinating as a kid. If you paid attention to it, they were all different. And they just understood the industry. We're trying to captivate people's attention. We're trying to drive it home. We're writing the best songs that we can write. Some are better than others, but I do think that catalog holds up in those first few years. It was only after they really, really became super successful, the song started to really hit or miss.
But
But
that's usually what happens if you're not careful.
yeah, but when they were in their prime period, I would say from 76 to 77, those 2 years they were in their prime.
When you're hungry, you do your best writing.
All three of those records, but they had already achieved, they were pumped up because they were successful. In 76, 77, you say Destroyer, Rock and Roll Over Love Gun, Alive 2, they were at the top of their game.
Oh yeah.
After that, they started to get a little big for the britches, So things started to. But we'll go by track and just see what each other has to say about this record. Anything that jumps out at you guys. But J.R. Smalling is the guy who introduces the record. He was the road manager for the band at that point. And
You
I could
wanted
talk.
the best, you got the best.
And actually,
The
you know
hottest
what?
band in the world.
But he came up with that from a Toyota commercial, is what
Oh,
I
really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's something like you wanted the best, and they kind of created it out of that. But it used to be put your two lips together,
For
here's the kiss,
kids.
and so yeah, it really was a
Pause.
great thing that they came up with, and it's iconic for
Oh,
anybody
yeah.
who listened to those records, and they maintained it for the rest of their career after that, of course. So J.R. Smalling did the intro to the band. I always thought it sounded odd, compared to the rest of the records. And I think Alive 2 was the first record that I actually heard.
Yeah, and it's in your face. And on
Yeah.
the Kiss Alive, the first one, it's just kind of, it's a little
Yeah.
bit in the background almost. And I'm like,
It
that
sounds
should have
like
been so stronger.
it sounds like a human being, but
Yeah.
Alive 2 sounds like a superhuman.
Yeah. You are the best. You got the best. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was actually the bodyguard for the band.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember his name. Eddie Banda, maybe. I probably have his last name wrong, but he worked for Paul Langine and got fired multiple times. But he did all those introductions. So that year, in that period of time, I should say. So Deuce is the opening track. The explosion you hear is actually a sample, or not a sample, but it's a recording of a cannon. That actually is not what they heard in live, but again, that's part of the whatever you want to say, manipulation, trickery.
It's
to
the pomp and
capture a live
circumstance,
moment.
man.
Right. Yeah. It worked, so Deuce was what they opened up with for probably the first couple of years of the band until Detroit Rock City came along, and powerful opener, great track.
Oh, yeah.
Gene Simmons wrote that kind of in a backwards tribute to the Rolling Stones songs Bitch. He just kind of took that riff and tried to turn it upside down and came up with his version of it and wrote that song. And what Deuce means, I do not know. Get your grandma out of here. But it's great. It's great fun. And I think it's some of Ace's
Not this.
best compositional leads.
Yeah.
Great lead part. And then we have
it's interesting to know that so many of these songs on this album came from the first album. You would think they're touring to promote Dress to Kill, their third album, but I think there's only 2 songs on that album that are on this live album. Or
I wonder how many songs in total were recorded over those 4 nights that they chose these best performances from.
Good question.
Because I have something to say later. I don't want to say it right now. But
there are 3 tracks from Dress to Kill from the record.
Yeah.
But Rock Bottom, Come On and Love Me, and She.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe that's all of the tracks from of Dress to Kill. Oh no, Rock and Roll All Night.
Rock and Roll All Night.
Yeah, 4 tracks. Yeah, so there are 4 tracks. So yeah, that's pretty
how could y'all forget about that one?
It's well represented. I think it has as many tracks as Hotter Than Hell does, but yeah, you're right. It is funny that the first 3 records, studio records, all sound so different. They do have the same producer for the first 2 records, and then they have Neil Bocart who produced the 3rd record, which is the most poppy, to the point record, which I love that record. I love them all for different reasons, but
yeah,
it is funny they all sound different. But yeah. So Deuce is the first track. Anything you want to say about that track, Grant, or anything you want to say more about?
No, it's a good song.
All right,
it's a classic Kiss.
I always thought that was a great opener, and on the debut record, Strutter is the opener. But Strutter is the second track on Alive. And I think it really works much better this way, the way they have it on Alive.
Well, yeah, because Strutter is a harder song, for lack of better. It's more like hard rock, with that riff than Deuce, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's as good of a song as Deuce.
No, it's not, but it's more of a heavier rock sound,
Yeah.
But it's Strutter is, I think, it's okay, but it has one of Ace's best guitar solos he ever did, in my opinion. Ace, you can say what you want to say about him. when he was a kid, like I said before, he was great. And he has tone in his fingers that nobody else has. The great guitar players that make an impact, I think, do. And he had an ability at 22, 23 years old to play these parts that just really were expressive. And his guitar solo in Strutter is one of his very best. It's really good. And that, especially the middle solo, the outro solo is very cool, but it's just good guitar work.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
those guys, the way they arranged these songs were really smart.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love the way Peter plays on this track.
Because a lot of Kiss songs are very simple, but it's the arrangement that really stands out.
Yeah.
Even if you're not aware of that's why you like that song, the
Right.
arrangement has a lot to do with that. Because if it wasn't arranged a certain way, it would just sound like basically a simple pop song, but it's
Right.
arranged in a certain way where you don't really, because that's what they are basically, but you don't really pick up on that, you know? I mean, everyone, when there was when your parents didn't want you to listen to certain band, this band, that band, Ozzy, Kiss, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, the people that were accusing these artists of doing certain things and being a certain way had never even listened to the songs to
Right.
really hear these are just pop songs with distortion basically,
Right.
and a different type of vocal than just your sweet normal type of pop song vocal. I mean, it's still a song with a melody and you can sing along to it.
Yeah.
And most of the songs are innocuous. There's nothing bad about it or nothing that controversial at all.
Right.
And it's always the people that are accusing things of being so bad. They're jumping on that bandwagon and they're not even listening to it to evaluate. Like people want to ban books they've never read. And I'm like,
Right.
you need to
Right.
read it first and try to understand it. But anyway, yeah, they're just pop songs, and I'm not dumbing them down or insulting them, but that, they're pop songs.
Well, I would say that, as Gene said many, many years ago, it's like they were trying to be the heavy metal Beatles.
Yeah.
And I would say that's not far off.
Not at all.
It's like the Beatles on steroids. There's a lot of harmonies, smart chord changes. I'm not comparing it to the Beatles material, but for what it really was good.
Well, a lot of what the Beatles did was the arranging as well. I mean, that made the song,
Right. Yeah. And I would say that if you just want to judge any artist, a song either stays with you or it doesn't. I can't be objective because I heard this music when I was so young and it's just a part of my DNA at this point, I guess, musical DNA. I don't know how objective I can be about it. Probably not very. But when I hear something that I like it. If it doesn't really move me and it doesn't stay with me, I don't care what it is. I'm not going to continue to listen to it.
Yeah.
There is something in Kiss's music, and I have gone back in time and reinvestigated things and tried to listen to things in a different way in multiple layers, just being a musician that your average person might not give a flip about. So I can say that I've done that. I don't know what that really means at the end of the day, except that I really have analyzed this music and I think it's okay. I think it works.
Well, you've got really good ears, so you would be the one.
I think
to
I
ask if
do.
It works.
I think I have good ears. I've always thought I did, but I do think that if it's good, it's gonna. I will be able to notice it.
Yeah.
And if it's not good, I'm gonna say it's not good. So, but we all have different tastes, of course. But moving on to the third track, Got to Choose, one of my absolute favorite songs by this band.
I was going to say the same thing.
Really?
Well, in this time period.
Not one of your favorites, huh?
Yeah.
This is one of the songs, and this is where it's going to get controversial.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, let's hear it.
I have 4 of them. I'm not going to reveal them all at once, but they could have left this song off the album.
Oh,
Really?
I totally disagree.
Well, we're just going to have to agree to disagree.
Yeah, I really like this song.
Let's talk about why you don't like it. Can you do that quickly?
I just don't think it's that clever or good or that big deal of a song.
You don't think it's melodic? See, to me, that's the key to the song. It's just one of the most melodic Kiss songs.
It's melodic, yes, but it's a forgetful song. It doesn't stick with me. It might stick, like I said, it's subjective, all subjective, but I just think that they could have left that off.
Wow. See, I think this is great because it has one of Ace's most melodic solos.
Unfortunately, that's the problem with a lot of songs from different bands. It does not just Kiss, but especially in this instance, yes, that's an amazing, cool melodic solo.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't get that solo without the song, obviously. But that's like I can't even think of an example, but there's other bands or performances like I hate the song, but I love this drum part or I love this bass part,
Right.
and I have to suffer through this song I don't even like just to hear this part I like.
Wow.
So I just think it's an unremarkable song. I mean,
It's more plotting than when the first two tracks, especially. It's not as rocking, but I think it really sits perfectly as the third song because they were just at a faster pace the first two tracks. This song, I really always love the chord changes that Paul's singing over when he's doing these.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as it can be, but I just think it works. I never heard anybody else do that little move that he did when he's changing. And it's just because he's using that B flat. That's what gets my ear because I think it's C to D. And then that B flat, it just gets me. So I think it's great songwriting. I love it personally.
Yeah.
But that's my taste. But
No,
it is interesting how we hear.
I don't have a defense, but I do really like this song.
Yeah,
like I said, for this
defense to like
period,
it, yeah.
I mean, their later stuff I like more, but for this period, that the song really stands out on the album. I don't know why it feels very different from everything else on this album.
I would say it's
I think
one of the most musical.
Maybe it's a collection of songs.
That's what I'm thinking. Is it
stands
doesn't
out as
really
different.
It doesn't match. Yeah, like you want to even if you want to put as any album, and this is bands have gotten into fist fights over running order of track order. And in this live album, I just don't think it goes. I don't think it's not one of my favorite songs, but I just don't think it fits the track listing as well.
Interesting. Well, it is. It has to be said that I don't know how often they played it. They didn't. They didn't play the song as much as you would be led to believe, like they did the rest of the tracks. I think this song was played occasionally, but I don't think it was played nearly.
That's why I'm curious. I would love to have a complete list of each concert just to see how they put this together.
It's out there. It's in a book. It's in a book by Kurt Gooch and Jeff Suss. It's out there. Yeah, it's been around for 20 years.
Yeah, I've just never had an.
Yeah, it's out there. Like, so some of these tracks never were recorded, like, King of the Nighttime World wasn't recorded prior. That was recorded at a soundtrack or a sound check for Kiss Alive 2. That wasn't recorded. That wasn't played at a show on that tour. It was recorded. It was played on the Alive 2 tour for the tour of the record, but they recorded that at a sound check.
Yeah.
They did that all the time. They were just songs that they just didn't play live, but they would present it as being played live, and you could say whatever you want about that.
I wonder if they had tried to record it live, but just never got a great take and said, "We're just going to do it at sound check," Like
I'm sure that's what happened.
Yeah.
But King of the Nighttime World was never part of the set.
There's it wasn't.
There's no. Not on the Love Gun tour. There's no documented time that it was ever played. So to most people's knowledge, it wasn't played on the Love Gun tour, but yet it's on the live record.
Yeah, it fits great in Kiss Alive too. That's a great. I mean, I have no problem with any song or running order or anything on Kiss Alive too. I prefer it to Kiss Alive.
Well, there are things about Kiss Alive 2 that I much prefer, but I won't go into why that is. But
we'll do that later.
Guitar
Stay tuned, kids.
Just leave it at that. But so they were trying to present a concert experience. So this was pretty much as they would have played it for the most part. And I think these tracks were as they played them in concert for the most part. So Hotter Than Hell is the next track. I think it's a really great performance. I'm pretty sure that is from the Cleveland, Ohio show. It's a bootleg called Fried Alive, if you see that on YouTube or something, or it used to be called Fried Alive. It's probably just Cleveland on YouTube, but I'm pretty sure that's the performance. And then Firehouse, classic. None of us knew really back then that's when Gene breathed fire. I mean, nobody, unless you saw him in concert, when we were that young, nobody knew when that was. But
Makes sense. Either on Hotter to Hell or Firehouse because
yeah,
Yeah.
it
hell
really,
and fire. Hellfire.
I'll say that Hotter Than Hell is an okay song.
Yeah.
I've always thought it use a new arrangement,
Yeah.
speed it up a little bit, make it swing. It'd be a great rock song.
Hotter than hell.
Firehouse was played with Wicked Lester. Is that right? Wasn't
No.
it an early song for them?
No, they Lover All I Can and She were recorded for the Wicked Lester record, but not
Okay.
Firehouse.
I thought he'd written it when he was with Firehouse. I don't know, or Wicked Lester. I don't
He
know.
he actually, that was one of the very first songs he wrote. He wrote it when he was
Okay.
17.
Okay.
So that was around for a while.
Yeah. So maybe they didn't record it, but he played it with Wicked Lester. I don't know, but
I
it is an
don't know.
older song.
Yeah. And I think it's just that don't. It's just a cool riff.
Mhm.
It's so simple, but I remember being a kid, I was like, that just sounds good. And it's so simple. There's
Yeah.
nothing fancy about it, but it just works. I would agree with you that the Hotter Than Hell is never been one of my favorite songs, but I do love the studio version. I love the guitar sound on that track that I'm pretty sure is all Paul. That
Yeah.
opening riff is just bone crunching. That is a great Marshall sound right into a Marshall. That is so good.
Yeah.
I personally love that record for the abrasiveness that it has. It just has a raw quality that I personally love. I know a lot of people don't like that record.
Yeah.
Some great tracks, including that one on Alive. So I want to say anything else you want to say about the first side before we move on to side two?
That's all I got.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. So I want to say the next track on side two would be Nothing to Lose.
Yes.
Actually, the first single that they ever had as a
Yeah.
band.
For first album, written by Gene.
No wonder it didn't succeed.
Yeah.
They could have left this off the album too.
Yeah. This has never been one of my, I don't love this version of it. I
Mhm.
think the studio version I like much better.
Yeah,
And
it is better. I'll
I'm
agree.
in the minority because
Even though I don't like it, I'll agree.
Well, most people say they much prefer the performances and the sounds on Alive, but there are tracks that I love as much as the record, but the
Mhm.
studio, but this is not one of them. I don't think there's anything remarkable about this. It's okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not live worthy. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's a song. Yeah.
I can appreciate.
I can't believe there was nothing else recorded during those 4 shows that they couldn't have substituted this with.
I can appreciate both versions. The studio version is the more appealing. This on Alive doesn't necessarily bring the energy that they were shooting for. It doesn't bring the energy of the rest of the album.
Yeah.
Allergies have got me tongue tied again.
Mhm.
Nothing to lose. Yeah, I'm okay with it.
It's okay.
Studio. I think we all agree the
Yeah.
studio version's better.
Yeah, I would say that they were much more successful with this song on the next 2 tours, on Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over tour, which was the last time they really played it. On the Rock and Roll Over tour, it was really, really done well.
Yeah.
If you watch the Budokan show from April 77, I think that's a great performance of the song. It's the last great performance of the song, as far as I'm concerned, but not spectacular on Alive. But so the next track is Come On and Love Me. And I do think this is a fine version of the song. I think it's equally as good as really. So
They could have left this off the album.
Well, do you like the song though?
It's okay. I mean,
Okay, see, I think it's a really good Kiss song.
yeah. I mean,
It's silly as it is. I think it really is. What
yeah.
Kiss are about.
There you go. It's not the vibe that they've created with the other songs. Just like it's not that little bit of danger, that little bit of edge. Here we go. It's like, we got a Beatles pop song.
Yeah, it's a pop song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just don't think it
accessible.
fits. I don't think it fits.
Wow.
So
So it's interesting how your vision of it is, which is not wrong, but I look at it as there's different moods.
Mhm.
Like, it's not going to be all dark. It's not going to be all this. There's going to be a little bit of brightness in it. And this is one of those songs that has that brightness. And to me, it's like a roller coaster.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
I've
get
always
that.
looked,
That's fine, but it's bright. It's just a little. It's got a little hope to it.
yeah.
We can
I
be
like
bright
the
without
song
being
though.
hokey. Yeah.
I love the studio version. I think it's a good Kiss song. I think it's one of Paul Stanley's best songs in the first few years of the band. So to
Yeah.
me, I've always liked the song. It's very simple. It's to the
Sorry.
point.
All right.
Michael's allergies are bothering me.
I'm
Yeah.
contagious.
But anything else we want to say about "Come and Love Me"?
It's a good song. It is interesting how you view the songs maybe in the playlist of the album.
Context, yeah.
Maybe we need to make a playlist just for you and rearrange all the songs
That you should
to make it
that's
flow
what we
better.
should do.
Jamie, that's your next assignment.
Next show.
I do
Just
do that
alive.
with the recordings.
Rework.
Mm.
I actually edit them
Redux.
through iTunes and I make my versions of it. I've done that with a few records.
Yeah.
That I just know that I don't want to hear this part. I do
Mhm.
that occasionally, but
Yeah.
I don't feel the need for this to do that. Okay.
Parasite.
Next song, Ace Frehley song, sung by Gene Simmons, Parasite.
Yes.
I wish I could be objective about this. To me, this is just classic old Kiss. It just is
Mhm.
fun. It's not a great song compositionally. I mean, really, if you were to analyze it, it's not good at all. But it works the way they deliver
It's
it.
not great, but it's freaking cool.
That's
It's
probably
that's the
the best
key.
Yeah,
explanation.
it is cool.
It's
And
freaking cool, man.
Ace's solo is great because it's just from the hip.
When
It's
you hear
just-
that riff, you're like, "Oh, this is
Yeah.
cool."
Yeah.
yeah,
From the very start, it's just a fun song.
yeah, yeah. It's fun. Like you said, it's fun and it's cool. But the next song, She, I always felt like this was one of Kiss's best riffs.
Yes, I love this
I love
song.
it. I love it.
If there's a Spinal Tap song, this is it, man. It just seems so
probably.
classic early 70s arena rock, very kind of silly.
But that
very
music's
silly,
so
actually.
cool, man.
It is cool, but it still makes it just it makes me chuckle. It brings a
Michael?
smile on my face because it's just so silly.
Your first problem is being cerebral about Kiss.
I need to stop.
Yeah,
thinking
there
about
is something to say. That is true, Grant. I think you have to just ride that wave and just take the musician hat off and just enjoy it for what it is. But I know you do that, Mike. I know you listen.
Well, we
you
all
listen
do at
to this.
times, and you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's not the greatest lyric, or that's cheeky, or that's
Well-
hokey." But you just got to take it for what it is, and in the context in which it is.
I would agree with you though, Mike. That probably is the most campy song on the record.
Mhm.
But there's something that the thing that I love about this song is there's different layers to these songs that I love.
Yeah.
This song is what it is, but I do love the riffs on it. But the thing
Yeah.
that I really love about it, and I only did this coming around after I had been a fan for a long time, and I decided to analyze this with a musician's point of view after it had been played for a long time. The guitar tones on this song, on the studio version especially, I love. They're really, really great between that chunky power chord and then you have that really crystalline sound that I don't know if Paul's playing it. Probably Paul. He always had a little bit of a thinner sound than Gene or Ace. It just works in that arrangement. I just think that I love the sound of it. So that's part of why I love it as well. So,
Well, I like the song, but it does come across as silly and derivative maybe to me.
I get
But as we were talking about the Midnight Special performance earlier in the year, go back and watch them perform She on YouTube, and it's so much fun. As silly as it is, it's a lot of fun
sounded
to
good.
see them perform and hear them perform it.
Isn't Kiss the first Spinal Tap? Aren't they? How can they be derivative of themselves?
I
They
guess-
they invented it.
There's
Pun intended.
that early 70s rock,
Yeah.
arena rock, that's that kind of thing you would hear.
Yeah.
It's easy to classify it as that. So, but I mean, I'm not trying to be disparaging on the song. but
No.
it does
You
make
like it. I
it
mean,
does
yeah.
make me laugh. Here
Yeah.
it comes. There's that riff. There's that second riff.
Yeah.
Well, this was also
So-
the setup for Ace's guitar solo in that
Yeah,
period
yeah.
of time. And you know, that is what it is. But I would just say again about the Midnight Special, they perform those songs, and I would say almost assuredly there's zero editing of what they played.
Mhm.
What
I
you're
gotta,
hearing is what they played that night.
I gotta
They
go watch
sound
that.
really good.
I haven't seen that in years. I gotta go watch that.
It's
Yeah, they're
good. It's
really
solid.
good copies on YouTube. Really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
mean.
they
I'm
actually
gonna
they did
watch it tonight.
they upscaled the quality within the last year or two, so they're really crisp. They just look really good. So
Yes.
so the next track is Watching You. And we talked about this last year. Probably had been a minute since you had heard this song. Mike and I were in the car going to a fall festival in Greensboro, North Carolina, many years
Yeah.
ago.
I
We were
thought about
playing
this
together.
today when I heard this song. I was
Yeah.
listening to this album again, but
It's
go
like,
ahead
is
and tell
that
your
Jethro
story.
Tull? Yeah, it's like, what?
And this, I mean, obviously this song came out long before Jethro Tull's album Tales from the Woods. But there is a song in Tales from the Woods that has that same kind of galloping riff in the
Yeah.
middle of this, and that's what I heard, and I was like, "Is this Jethro Tull?"
Oh,
Wow.
But yeah, it's a very good song.
sorry. Can I backtrack really quickly? Because I forgot to say something about Got to Choose.
Going back,
Okay.
A couple years later, or maybe a year later, well, they were already working on the album. Ace basically stole the riff of that song for "Shock Me." You listen to it and how it's structured at the beginning with the broken guitar. eh, eh. That's where he got the idea for "Shock Me." You can sing "Shock Me" along to the first part of "Nothing to Lose" when that guitar is broken, when the chords when they don't
Oh,
continue.
I don't hear that at all.
You can. You go back and listen to it, and
well, you probably didn't hear Jethro Tull in Watching You, but
I
there
did
it
not.
is.
Well, I thought you were actually going to say about She that we didn't touch on, that Ace's guitar solo is actually Robbie Krieger's 5-1.
oh yeah,
That is dun, dun, yeah, it's the solo. I mean, Ace just
Hmm.
did his cool version of it, but that's 5-1 by the Doors.
I gotta go listen to that now.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah,
almost
check that out.
exact. It's almost exactly note for note.
Wow,
But Ace does it in a very cool way.
that's where
I think
Giacomo got the idea.
it's much cooler than Robbie Krieger's solo, really.
Yeah.
But it's the solo. Yeah, he totally stole it. But
Hmm.
yeah, and Mike McCready did the same thing on a live.
Yeah,
So anyway, yeah, I'll have to check that out. I can't hear that in my head.
You
Shock
will.
Me is-
you will.
okay. All right. So
Got
next
musical
track.
Yoda on.
Watching You, I really just want to finish up. I think that
Oh,
is a great rock track. I think that was one of the best rocking tracks for them. That is a
Mhm.
Gene Simmons song.
Yeah,
I love the harmonies that Ace and Paul do in that, and I love Ace's solo. It's just flashy, but it's just fun.
It's
cool.
perfect for this album.
Yeah, and it works. The next track, one of my absolute favorites, 100,000 Years.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
always loved this song.
yeah.
This song is total Kiss.
Yep.
And
Total
Gene's
Kiss.
voice is just so perfect for that song. No one else could have sung that song.
Except Paul Stanley, who actually sang it.
Didn't Gene sing it?
No.
What am I thinking of? 100,000 years.
Watching
Oh,
You.
Gene,
he
never mind.
sang.
Gene
Never
wrote
mind.
100,000 Years, but
Never mind.
Him and Paul both.
I'm
wrote.
thinking of
oh,
a
did they
different
both
song.
write it? Okay, I
They
thought that
did
was a
both
Gene
write it.
song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What am I thinking of? Sing it for me, Jamie. I don't remember how it goes. No, I'm kidding.
I'm not going to do that.
I knew you would.
It's got a great. It's just different. It's a different song structure than you would have heard
Yeah.
back then. It's just a great Paul.
It was
track.
a little Sabbathy,
Yeah.
It's
for lack
it's-
of better
Yeah,
thing,
it's
'cause
darker. It's darker than a lot of stuff that they wrote at the time. It was very unusual for them,
Mhm.
and it's one of Ace's best guitar solos because it's
Yeah.
so weird. But it just, again, the fact that he took this weird thing and made it so bluesy and musical at the same time and melodic, it just worked. I just think that was them at their best.
That's why
This is-
Ace to me is such a standout player for the 70s,
Yeah,
because so many players in the 70s relied so heavily on the blues
Yeah.
and it's unmistakable in their playing, and they're great players, but it's like,
Right.
man, I've heard this 1 billion
Exactly.
times.
Exactly.
Do something else. Just like
Right.
drummers nowadays all sound the same because they got all these chops and they got all this. And I'm
Right.
like, everybody's playing like this, dude. I have no interest in this whatsoever. But
Ace
yeah, I
was
mean, Ace,
listening to the song back then.
exact. Yep.
And
He was.
he did do that later. But
Yeah.
back then he was listening to the
He had
song.
such a
coming up with-
melodic ear that he
He
was
really
like, oh
did.
yeah, those solos are great.
It hurts me deeply that I don't know where that went. But back when he was a kid, he had something special.
Hmm.
It didn't last that long. And I don't know what happened, but he had something that was really good for this 2 or 3 year period. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
I could go on an episode just talking about where he really shined as a guitar player. It was
Well,
really
that's fair.
melodic.
Another
But,
episode for a later day.
I'm sure that'll get a
The
lot of
Ace
views.
Frehley episode.
Yeah.
I'm trying to Google what song I'm thinking of that I've mistaken for 100,000 years. That'll have to be next episode because
Mike will
Okay.
get back to us on that.
All right.
I'm
Well-
distraught now.
Well, the next track is Black Diamond.
Yes.
Again, just a really important track for those guys in the first couple of years, or really first several years.
Mhm.
Drums levitated as high as they possibly could during that track, and Ace would get on his knees and play that solo during that part.
Very dramatic.
It just was a great climax to the rock and roll experience. I think it's a great track. Peter Criss sings this one. Paul Stanley, I think he wrote most of it. The main riff is Gene Simmons' riff. It's his. It's just like Flaming Youth. That one of those riffs is a Gene Simmons riff,
Mhm.
and that's when they were at their best. It's like, I've got something that would go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
But,
true collaboration.
yeah. Well, I hear something. Let me give you what I've got here.
Yeah.
They were really good partners, and Black Diamond. I love it. Anything you guys want to add?
Not really.
It's,
Just like Deuce, one of the best songs off the first album.
I would say
think-
good track.
It has the
Um,
cut and the clarity to last a lifetime.
Yeah, Black Diamond. Next track, beginning of the fourth side of the Rock Bottom. I always love this song.
And that's
Not
off
one
Dress
of your
to Kill.
favorites. It
Is that
is
right?
off with Dress to Kill.
On
Ace
this,
Frehley
on
wrote
this
the-
album,
Yeah.
in this context, the intro is great. I love that little guitar intro.
on the studio version.
And on the
On the live version
live,
as well.
but it doesn't go with the song at all, though. It's like a total.
Let me explain why. Okay.
Please.
Here's the thing is, when they recorded Dress to Kill, they had so few songs, and they had to revisit 2 songs that they did in Wicked Lester, Love Her All I Can and She.
Mhm.
They were forced off the road, and Neil Bogart said, we got to go back in the studio. We need another record. The guys had no material. They did the best they could. When you take about Anything for My Baby, Ladies in Waiting, Two-Timer, Getaway by Ace. Not that great.
Yeah.
I love them for what they are, and I appreciate them for what they are, and I really have accepted them. But they were struggling for material. They had 28 or 29 minutes of material for that record.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
I can see
It was all
They-
about they needed
to fill
Material.
the seconds. Yeah.
Ace had this really cool intro that he did, and they just tacked it on to the beginning. It doesn't
Yeah.
have anything to do with the song.
Yeah.
You're
It's
absolutely
obvious.
right.
Yeah. It just doesn't work. It doesn't go.
But-
But yeah, I just think this is another one they could have. I don't know what else was recorded to sub it with, but it just
Yeah.
they could have left it off. The 4 songs I chose, if you take them out of the lineup and you listen to a whole album, it's more cohesive and it fits together better in my humble opinion.
Okay.
But I how you make playlists. I think if you leave those 4 songs off, it's a better album for it. Yeah, it's 4 songs less long, but it's a better album.
They recorded other tracks.
Yeah. I'd
for
just
the
be
show.
like
But
I
I'm
said,
glad that they didn't
Yeah.
include them. Let me know.
yeah,
That was recorded. I'm glad that didn't go on the record. To me, that would have been a big downer.
downer. Yeah, Yeah.
I don't think it's a strong track, but that was played a lot on the that
Mm.
tour. I personally love Rock Bottom. I think it's one of Paul's best rocking songs. I dig it. I don't even think about the intro going with the song itself. I just accept it for what it is. I don't look at it that way. I know that they don't have anything to do with each other, but it is just what it is. But I love the fact that on these live version, Ace has an additional guitar solo that's
Yeah.
not on the studio version. And I just think it's a cool. I love Gene's background vocals on this song. The Rock Bottom. It
And
works for
again,
me.
it's one of the more popular songs that I think are out of place. That's all, you know. I
Wow,
mean,
that's interesting. It is interesting how you hear, I guess, how you would want to have this presented to you. I love the poppy part of it because to me, it's just a extra spice in there. There's just a little surprise.
I would almost
love
prefer them to start the album, and then when they get to got to choose, go ahead and play all the pop songs, the 3 or 4
Oh,
popular
really? See, I
songs,
don't.
and then change the mood, and then get back to rocking and get back to heaviness. You know?
I just want to say, I know a lot of bands do that. I absolutely, totally disagree. I know a lot of bands will play like we're going to do our 3 acoustic songs here, then we're going to do these songs. Have never understood that. I don't think it's a good concert experience. I think it's just easier for the band.
Yeah.
To me, it's almost lazy. Now to get an acoustic out, for certain, I love it when a band is just going up and down, up and down. Take me along for the ride. It's a roller coaster. That's the way I look at it. I don't want to have these poppy songs in the middle here, and then we're going to go for all dark. That doesn't work for me. But I've never understood that. But it is interesting how we all have different tastes, of course, and hear things differently. But I've never looked at this record as being anything but what it is.
Mhm.
I've never wanted it to be anything else.
Yeah, when I listened to it as a kid, and then later on, it didn't occur to me. But as a seasoned listener and someone who
Right.
has more experience, you start to notice, why is this grating on me a little bit? Why is this song
Yeah.
doing this or doing that? And then you say, okay, skip. Oh, this is a much nicer experience, you know.
Yeah.
For me anyway. Like you
Right.
said, when you make your playlist, you take an album and you'll chop out 2 or 3 songs that you're like, you don't care for. That's the equivalent of what I'm doing basically. So
There's one record that I've done an extensive editing, and that's Rush Caress of Steel. I
Mhm.
have my own version of that, which is nothing like the way the record is. And to me, it's much more satisfying.
yeah.
I went to the trouble to edit what I wanted to hear. And I
You
think
mean
I'm
you
going
don't
to
like the
August.
Necromancer?
No, there are parts of Necromancer, but not the entire track. But I made my own version of it.
Yeah, I think I'm going bald is I even as a kid, I was like, what in the damn? I was
Yeah.
like, no, needle up, down. No,
Right.
I'm not listening to that. After
It
one
is what
listen,
it
I was
is.
like, it's weird. This is I mean, I can listen to it now and laugh, but I was like, yeah,
Right.
y'all should have done something else here.
Well, maybe putting Rock Bottom after Black Diamond is,
Yeah,
know,
I think
it's
it's a
exempt-
jarring.
yeah, it's exemplary of the changes they made, the progress they made from the first album to the third, maybe because the third
Well,
was tighter, more poppy, maybe.
it was, but I think also what we miss on a record is without being at the show is that Black Diamond was the first big climax of the show, and then they had to probably come on for an encore.
Yeah.
Rock Bottom would have been one of those tracks that they came back on for an encore. That's really
Mhm.
what we don't get listening to the
yeah.
record.
I think Dress to Kill was more poppy because Neil was like, okay, 2 albums and we got nothing. Let's try a little bit more
You mean
different.
Dress to Kill?
Yeah, sorry, Dress to Kill.
Yeah.
We're gonna try to take a little poppier angle,
Oh, yeah. He
Yeah.
was totally bubblegum. He was totally
Yeah.
about, we need a hit, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he is totally trying to make it more accessible.
hmm
Mhm.
I don't know how much he actually had to do with the production, even though he's considered the producer. I love the sound of Dress to Kill.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it is really good. It's certainly the best production of the 3 records.
Yeah.
I think you could say, but I love all those records for different reasons. But okay, so Rock Bottom, we have mixed feelings about that track. I personally love it. But and also the flanging that you hear at the very beginning of that track, really unusual.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
classic for the record. And I want to say that they were using flanging a lot on this record, on the
When I think of
drums.
flanging, I do think of the '70s.
Oh yes, very much so. Yeah, I
Oh, yeah,
agree
his
with
drums in the drum solo, that's all super
Yeah.
flange,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a great drum solo for what it was. I
Yeah,
don't know what
Mhm.
you could
and
compare it
kids
to.
are
You
playing like, "Why don't my drums sound like this?"
well,
Because it's a
these
flanger.
these guys made people want to start playing drums
Yeah,
and
oh, yeah.
guitar. So
That flanging sound on the drums was on live too,
Mhm.
also
Yeah,
on the drum solo. So maybe that's a Peter Chris
it's a
signature.
Peter thing. He's got a pedal over there.
Yeah.
apparently
Clicking the
Neil stole
flanger.
that from Peter at some point, and I know that I read somewhere that that's part of the reason why they kicked Rush finally off any future shows.
Mm.
That they played one show together and wherever it was in November of '75, maybe was the last time they played together, but Neil had borrowed the flanging sound. So they say. That would have been on the Down the Tubes tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next track, Cold Gin. Really iconic intro, very pretentious, staged, being that Paul and Gene didn't drink. Ace was totally a drinker, but
Yeah.
He drank enough for both of them. Sorry.
yeah.
Sorry, Ace.
Interesting lyrics that have been interpreted several different ways over the years, but it's a good solid rock song, I think.
It's a great riff. I love the riff on it, and I love Ace's sound that he has.
Mhm.
It's what it is. I would
Yeah.
never say it's a great track, but it's cool. It's classic Kiss. It was the solo. It was the song they ended up playing for the next two tours where he played. I think his solo was on Cold Gin on
Yeah.
Destroyer Rock and Roll Over tour. And it was a great live track. I just how I think about it. It's a
Yeah.
studio track. I do remember the first time hearing it when I got double platinum when I was a kid, maybe
Mhm.
11 or something. I remember hearing it for the first time, and I just remember thinking how dark it was and different.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe that's why I like it.
Yeah.
I don't
yeah,
know.
it's cool. I like it. I like it. I mean, I don't dislike it. I think Cold Gin is.
Yeah, I
I
obviously
think
like the darker
I,
song.
I love that opening riff. It's just different.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
nothing quite like it back then.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything you guys want to add to that before we go into the last two tracks?
I'm good.
All right.
I'm down with Cold Gin.
Rock and Roll All Night. One of the most iconic, and this is the version. This is such a good rock and roll fun song.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's let's rock and roll all night and party every day. It was just right to the point. This song was co-written by Gene and Paul. Paul had the chorus, and the Drive Me Wild was the song that became the verses to
Yeah.
Rock and Roll All Night.
Mhm.
And just what a great marriage. These guys really worked well together and knew what they needed to do to get the job done. And I love the song. I love to listen to the studio version more than this, actually. I really
Mhm.
think the
I
studio
don't know
version is-
anyone that doesn't like this song. Even
Yeah,
the
it's
people
just-
that don't
it's
like
good.
Kiss like this song,
Mhm.
you know?
I would agree with that. Yeah.
When
It
you're
just-
talking about rock and roll anthems, it's right up there.
It's got to be
It
one of
might
the
be
top,
I mean, how is it not the one?
Yeah.
I mean,
one
at
of the top
least,
ones.
yeah.
Now, for me, the final track is a throwaway. I've never really cared for this song. And I don't think that this version is.
I like it way better than the 4 I would have thrown away.
Wow. So that's interesting. To me, this is not
It's-
interesting.
It's poppy, it's melodic, they got those cool
This is-
guitars. I mean, I
You
just
think
like
this
it.
is poppy?
Yeah.
Let
can
me
see
go
that.
rock and roll. Really? Wow. What am I not hearing here?
I don't know. You
This
got
just
good
sound-
ears, man. You should be able to
This
hear it.
sounds really rock and rolly, like not in a complimentary way. I think that the guitar sound on the Hotter Than Hell version is great. I love the punch you in the chest that Ace and Paul are getting on this song. Their guitar tones, I love. It's never been a great song, but I think this goes on way too long. That where it drops
Yeah,
down.
it
and they
probably
do-
does. Yeah, that's
I
its
never
own
listened
fault.
to this
Yeah.
track. I have it on my playlist. but I never listened to this track. Never. I just do not like this guitar sound on this version. I don't think this is an exceptional version, but I'm in the minority. I know most people totally disagree. I've listened to lots of people talk about this record and this song, and just about everybody says, oh, the live version is so much better than the studio version. I could not agree less. I don't care for it. But that's what I have to say about Let Me Go Rock and Roll. You guys think it's a good one, huh?
It's an okay song. It doesn't annoy me, but
Yeah.
I won't say it's throwaway. But if I ended the album at
Rock and roll all night.
I'd be
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know why they didn't do that in reverse order. Do this and then rock and roll all night, because that's the ultimate ending song. You know.
Well, this is the way this was the track, the final track they played those first 2 years. They were trying to present a Kiss concert experience, and this was actually the way it was live. This would have been the very last track they played in that period of time. If you watch the Winterland show from January of 75, which would have been just a day or two before they got yanked off the road to start recording and writing for Dress to Kill, I want to say the very last track on there, which is only partially recorded, is Let Me Go Rock and Roll. It's you see Ace playing a white Les Paul, which became the black Les Paul that's on the cover of Alive. That's just the way it was back then. That's the way they recorded the show. But
it's white on my album cover.
Yeah.
But
I can't really see it. But yeah, that's the Kiss Alive. What a great rock and roll record, in my opinion, in our opinion. It totally stands the test of time.
Yeah, you cannot deny that. You cannot deny either of those things.
Landmark album, a lot of interesting information about it.
Yeah.
Being the way it was recorded and presented.
And one of the most important live records, not only for the band, but for the music industry. Changed things. It really did change the way every act, just about virtually every rock act for the next 5 years. So you had to do a live record.
It legitimized the live record,
It did. You can, if it did nothing else but that, that'd be amazing. I mean, everybody from Fleetwood Mac, I mean, even pop bands, Eagles, you had to do a live record after Kiss. So, they were one of a kind. There will never be another band quite like them. And many people might say, well, thank God. But I love Kiss. They are what they are. And they've given me lots of joy in my life. And I think this is a great record. And for any of those people who have not really dove into this record, I highly encourage you to do that. I think we all three can say that.
I'm going to do that myself.
Yeah.
Go listen to 100,000 years.
Just leave off the songs that I suggest.
Yeah, I do want you to, please get back with us and let us know which track you think that Gene was singing that you still haven't figured out. I want to know what that track is.
I've got Homer. I've got it in my head, but I can't think of the name of it. I thought it was 100,000 years, but obviously I'm not as familiar with their catalog as
God of Thunder.
Should
you thinking
be.
of God of Thunder?
No, I knew God of Thunder.
Okay.
It's like that. I don't know. Something on their early albums. I'll have to listen to. Anyway, let me know, kids. Write it in the comments.
Yeah,
what you think I am thinking of.
Michael, you suck.
All right. Thanks everybody for checking in. As hinted at, comment. I love that. Please, I want a picture of that.
I'll send it right
Put it
away.
on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And then get copyright strike.
I will get it. I will get a t-shirt of that. If you'll give me a good quality picture.
Don't show
Then you'll
Gene.
get a personalized letter from Gene.
Yeah.
Lawyer.
I don't care. All right. Thanks everybody for checking in. See you guys next week.
All right. Be well.
See if he remembers. Oh, yes.